setting up your Solidworks. Once we launch the Solidworks app, you're going to come to this screen that we're going to do a little bit of adjustments. So I like to see the pull-down menus. So I'm going to do a little push pin. Now this is fairly small, so if I come over into the gray area, we're going to be on toolbars just yet. Let's see if I can find the icons. There we go. On the gear, the options, the settings. I'm going to go to large, and it should warn me that may not resize completely, but at least now they should be visible. All right, so push pin means stay there. If you've got the welcome screen, there's a box in the bottom left that says do not show again. I probably click that. If you like to utilize this, that's fine. It will continue to come up. Or if you need to see it, you just pick on the little welcome. The new is going to take us into a document. Right now we just have our standard templates, parts, assembly, drawing. If you see the novice screen, where part, assembly, drawing, that'll take you to the same templates, but later on we're going to create a custom template with our settings and our preferences, and we're only going to be able to see those under the advanced. So if I click on the part, that's actually going to take us into the work area, and we have the standard open, save, print, undo, redo, selection tools, a rebuild, so when the geometry gets changed or needs to be updated, you can rebuild, file properties, and the options. Options are going to be a few things that we want to do right away. So in general, the confirmation corner, when we're in a sketch, we'll see the little checkbox over here. If that doesn't show up, we'll come back to the options and make sure that that's checked. Some of the auto sizing, you can get in there, don't really need those. If you want to change screen backgrounds, we'll do that in a minute. Auto rotate view normal to sketch plane is a good one. Sometimes I will turn that off, but for the most part we're going to want that turned on. Nothing really under display, selection, performance. As with most programs, there's way more in here than we need. It's basically just be familiar with the high points. So one of the things I use quite a bit is solid bodies. So I'm going to switch that from automatic to show. And one of the reasons, if we have an issue with a sketch and it creates two solid bodies, I like to be able to see that immediately in the feature tree. Spin box increments, the all important if you're used to AutoCAD, reversing the mouse wheel zoom direction. I like to live dangerously, so I have the auto recover and auto backup turned off, but it warns me every 20 minutes for a little while that I haven't saved. And just clicking through these kind of quick. Nothing really here that we need to address right now. Document properties. Right now I have it set to ISO. If you want to switch to ANSI, you can just click on ANSI, and eventually we'll save that into our template if you decide. I do like some of the ISO preferences, but that's just me. Annotations, dimensions, can just customizing. One of the things with the graphics cards on the detailing, shaded cosmetic threads have had issues in the past, and they get kind of weird looking if you go with the shaded. So most of the time I turn those off. Most everything else looks pretty good. Our grid and snap, if you want to display the grid in your sketch or in your drawing, you can turn those on. But the grid to me isn't as functional as it should be, so I usually leave that off. And the all-important units. So right now we're in inch, pounds, and seconds. If we need to go to millimeters, metric, we will switch to. And there is a shortcut that we will be looking in the bottom right, the IPS, currently inch, pounds, and seconds. I'll have to get out of that. out of the options to utilize that one. The legacy material properties, image quality, if you're having display issues, sheet metal, weldments, plain display. Again, a lot of things that we're not concerned with right now. So I mentioned the shortcut. Right now we're in inch, pounds, and seconds, millimeters, grams, and seconds. I tend to stay with those two. If you need to make the adjustment on the units, so for instance, inch, pounds, and seconds, I would like to see 3 decimal places. And then we hit OK, and now it's updated. Right, so we have the part title name, file name, and it has a little asterisk next to it, which tells us that it hasn't been saved. The search and the help and about, and then our standard Windows close. One of the big changes for 2021 is the ability to collapse the command manager. So if I want to get back in there, I need to click, and if we come over and do the push pin, it now stays. Let's see if we are looking at the tabs. Some of the things that we would, if we're using a lot of, we would turn on. The recommendation is that you leave at least one of these on because it's a real pain to get it back if you turn them all off. So I've only seen that done once, and it took a little bit of finesse to get it working again. So we have the command manager. You can turn it completely off and go back to just toolbars, but I think the command manager is still pretty functional. And we have large buttons with text. If I uncheck that, we'll just have the large buttons. And then what was the other one? If we hover, we're going to see those tooltips. So we'll be able to check that out in a minute. So anything that highlights gets a description. If your instant 3D is on, which is in the gray kind of state, go ahead and turn that off. And over on the sketch tab, same with instant 2D. Those can be handy functional tools, but for starting out, they can create more problems than they're worth. So on the right side, we have the task pane and certain resources, design library, toolbox, file explorers, files that are currently open, and then being able to navigate to. The view palette is only accessible inside of a drawing. The appearances, scenes, and decals, and then custom properties if we've created a graphics interface to add those file properties as opposed to coming up to the top file properties. All right, so a lot of information going on, and we've barely scratched the surface. So one of the things I'd like is to set a default scene. The gradients are nice. I don't know how well it shows up on the video. So make sure I'm in the right one. Basic scenes. And as we scroll down through here, my preference is just to go with plain white. So if I right click on that and set as the default scene, that's going to change my background. I can easily come up to the heads-up display and pick different backgrounds, but if you're staring at the screen for the better part of the day, working on your designs and going through projects, the really harsh backgrounds can get old real quick. All right, so the heads-up display, we've got some basic tools. I'm going to go ahead and customize one thing real quick. So when we hit the customize, so right now I have large tooltips with images. When we hang over, that's the pop-up. If it has a description, it's part of the description. If I do large tooltips without images, that turns that off. We already found the shortcut to the button. All right, just right-clicking up in the title bar area. Show on selection, context toolbars, so some of the things that we can control. Quick access tools, and the all-important lock your command manager and toolbars. Okay, so if that's turned off, this can be Let's see if I can do it. By the tabs to undock it. Now I don't see the tabs, so I made that a little better then, because it used to drag a lot easier. So if it happens that command manager, your toolbars are moving unexpectedly, move them back and lock the command manager toolbars in place. Under the commands, well, we take a quick look at the shortcuts, and then under the commands, we're going to see something similar. And I want to look for the view, so I can look at the display styles, wireframe, looking for the solid shaded with edges, and if I left click and drag, that will add it to the heads-up display. And then if I want to get rid of it, I would just left click and drag it back into any of the command managers. So if I do a hidden lines visible, we can add that one. There's a couple of items in here that would be handy. Also, if your mouse doesn't support the pan, or you have different settings from different programs that you want to keep that maybe don't work as well in here, you could add your rotate view and your pan to the heads-up display and have a quick access, as well as the right mouse button when we get to it. On the menus, if we want to customize any of the pull-down menus, which I don't recommend, the keyboard shortcuts. Nice thing here is we can copy this list into an Excel file, and you have a list of all of the shortcut keys. When we did our intro under one of the shortcut menus, this will align with that. And I don't really do the mouse gestures. I guess I could go ahead and disable that now, but it's kind of well, I'll have to do it inside of the work area. But hold down the right mouse button as you drag. You will get the little donut to pop up and have some quick tools. I prefer the right mouse button and the S key and some of the other ones, so I've never really adopted the gesture. And then customization, we run into that, and then there is kind of the S key at that point. So the donut, right click, hold down and drag to the left or to the right. Let's see if it'll do it to the right. And that one's just going to the views. So we've got some basic customization. Whenever you see an icon and then the arrow next to it, you're going to have pull down. Be careful with the hide all types, because it is going to do what it says and hide everything. So I don't really want to do that right now, so I'm going to click on it again, and I'm going to go through and pick. I would like to see the view origins. Alright, so right now I'm kind of looking end on. So this is a good time to do the control buttons. Control 1, front, Control 2, back, Control 3, left, right, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright, so it's going to go through the list, which is the same as hitting the space bar, and Control 1, so you get to the back, Control 2, Control 3, Control 4, Control 5, and Control 6. And then some of the custom isometric, dimetric, trimetric, and normal 2. Alright, so normal 2 usually needs to have a selection. Also, if you turn on the view selector, you're going to get the cube and be able to go through and select those items. And it's not something that I use regularly, so just kind of go with your personal preferences and what you'll use the most. All right, so we mentioned the inch, pounds, and seconds. Right now I'm showing as editing the part, coming across the current version of Solidworks that we are in model. We also have motion study available. And then we get to the feature tree. And the feature tree is going to have the part name, its configuration and display states, which we'll get to. We have solid bodies, which was what we turned on in the options. Material if we've specified it. And then our standard planes, front, top, right plane. Those will be what we use to sketch. And then of course the origin. So that gives us kind of our basic setup for until we create a template. We're going to go through and do some of these a couple of times. And then once it's in the template, we won't have to reset it each time. The property manager will toggle on and off automatically. The configuration manager and the display states at the bottom, we will utilize those for different functions. I think it's still called DIM Expert Manager, which is now the model-based definitions, has some of the tools for dimensioning and tolerancing, and then the other side of the appearances and decals. So I think we've hit all of the high points, and really at this point it's just getting familiar with the terminology and navigating around the system.